And now, it's time for the Well-Read Llama with your host, author Erin Mifflin.
Hello, listeners. I made it through the school year. Whew, that is always an accomplishment. I love my job teaching at a small Christian school, but summer breaks are just as good for the teachers as they are for the students. Plus, now I have more time for reading and writing. I'm excited to talk to our guest today. We'll be talking to T. Elizabeth Renich. She writes historical romance that is thoroughly researched and brings each time period to life. Her most recent release, A Worthy Risk, is currently a finalist for the Holt Medallion. It's set shortly before the American Revolutionary War, and her book that releases later this month, A Declaration of Hope, moves even closer to that pivotal moment in our nation's history. Now, the T in T. Elizabeth Renich stands for Tammy, and she told me that's what I can call her. Tammy and her good friend, beloved author Laura France, are organizing a reader tour of important 18th century sites like the ones you'll read about in their novels. I can't wait for her to tell you more about that and give you information about where you can register to join them. In case this is your first time listening to the Well-Read Llama, I love interviewing Christian authors about their books and their faith. I'm a historical romance author myself, though I write in a little more recent historical period. My debut novel comes out next year and is set at the 1904 World's Fair. I can't wait to share it with you. For more information about me or my books, you can check out my website at authorerinmifflin.com, and you can also find my social media links there. With the 250th anniversary of our country coming up next month, I thought it would be a great time not only to highlight Tammy's books, but also some others set around the time of the Revolutionary War. Stay tuned after our conversation for some of my other recommendations. Now, let's bring in our guest. Hello, Tammy, and welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Now, you have a new book about to release called A Declaration of Hope. This is the second book in the Sovereign Liberty series. What is this historical romance series about?
There are two families who were introduced in A Worthy Risk who are going to be united in a Declaration of Hope. It's the Ravensworths and the St. Jameses, and they are caught up in a time when choices are not solely their own and their actions have lasting implications in their historical realm. There is a romance going in the story, along with a healthy dose of history, because I find the history fascinating. Many people, including a third generation reader, will finish reading my stories and say, "Really? I never knew that. Did that really happen?" There is a couple of varying love stories between the characters, not just the romantic variety. We have my main character, Serenity. She loves all of her brothers, but especially her youngest one. There's love between friends. There's love between families by choice, though not by blood. There's a grandmother's love for her motherless grandchildren, and many of them display a love for and reliance on Almighty God.
Yes, and this is set around the time of the Revolutionary War. Is that right?
The second one is yes.
Okay.
The first one kind of starts after the French and Indian War, going into Pontiac's Rebellion, which is the base of the reasons why we ended up fighting the American Revolution.
Gotcha. Now, reviews of the first book, A Worthy Risk, and then also, as you were talking about, mention a large cast of characters. Do you enjoy bringing many different personalities to life through the page?
I do, because I don't live my life in a vacuum with only one other person. I have relatives who tell me stories about their lives, who offer different perspectives. And sometimes in trying to tell a story, you can't have two characters everywhere all at once. And so it lets you tell a more robust story if you have more perspectives to be able to do it.
Now, why is it important to you to include a faith theme in your novels?
It's important because I can't write on my own. I might have ideas, but the inspiration is God-given. These are stories that I write with words that He has supplied, and I strive to use the words to bring glory to His name. And so the characters that He's given me usually have a faith impacting events in their lives as well.
Oh, I love that answer. Will there be more books in the Sovereign Liberty series?
We have one out right now that came out last June, A Worthy Risk. The second one, A Declaration of Hope, is coming out this June. And then the third one, which I'm trying to work on really hard right now, is going to come out next June.
Well, very exciting. So more books to look forward to.
And you should read them in order because they do follow the historical timeline in chronology.
You mentioned on your website that the first 4 books you wrote were a result of a dare. So who dared you and what are those books about?
So I had a friend who read some of my really early writings, and she dared me to accept a request from a publishing house. She kept saying, "You can do this." And even though I got to pick my historical time period, which I chose the American Civil War or the war between the states, depending upon where you're from, I wasn't entirely sure I could do it. I kept telling her, I am not Margaret Mitchell. I am not rewriting Gone with the Wind. But after Strength and Glory came out, I was reminded that I had written more pages than Gone with the Wind.
Oh, wow.
So you would have thought that I have learned my lesson from accepting a dare to write books all those years ago, but I ended up doing it again, and now we're in the middle of a second series.
Yes. So when you wrote the Shadow Creek Chronicles in the 1990s, did you have any idea that you would write again?
Nope. No, I had no intention of writing anything else. In fact, every time I thought the Shadow Creek books were, quote, dead, and like we were done now, we're done being an author, something would come along to resuscitate them. After I got my rights back from the original publisher, they were re-released last year as 25th anniversary editions with beautiful new covers.
That is so special. And just another testimony of look what God can do when we don't even expect things like that, right?
That's true.
Now, when did you first know that you loved history?
I'm thinking that it might be, I have an aunt who gave me the Laura Wilder, Ingalls Wilder Little House books.
Uh-huh.
And my daddy took us to some of those places on our summer vacations. So I got to see the places that she lived and wrote about. And I love going to real places that are in stories. Some people get the t-shirt, I get the book. Been there, done that, read about it.
Yes.
But when I was in high school, I was a stat girl. And I was usually on a bus somewhere on the way to or from football games or wrestling matches or track meets. And if I could find one book that could pass for English and for history, that I could write the same report and turn it in 2 different places, it was golden. And those are the kind of books I decided I wanted to write so that I could be entertaining but useful and with substance to the stories to make them a learning experience, which could be why some homeschoolers have used my books to supplement their curriculum.
Well, that's great. I love learning history too. And I think that's why I also write historical fiction, is just because I love learning about it and I love letting others know about it. And
Isn't it fun? The
there's
details are amazing.
yes, so much that you can dig in and discover. And I also like visiting the places that historical novels are set on or houses where authors lived. The Laura Ingalls Wilder house, there's one in Missouri that's about an hour away from where I live. And I've been there, I think, 3 times. It's just so fascinating.
And have you been to the Rock House?
Yes, I've been to that one
Okay,
too.
good.
And in, let's see, I think it was 2001, I had the opportunity to go to the Louisa May Alcott house in
Oh, up in
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. Okay,
Yes. And that was fascinating as well.
okay. I've been to the Harriet Beecher Stowe House in Connecticut.
Oh.
She's another one, got credited for starting a war by Abraham Lincoln.
So, what are some of your favorite ways to research?
I love going to the places like you were talking about, those historic houses and the battlefields and the museums. I really love hunting historical markers. That's one of my favorite things. I do a lot of prep work online with searches and stuff, see the places for myself. About a week after I came back from Erica Vetch's writers conference, which if you ever get a chance to go, I think you would love it. The very next weekend, I was up in Philadelphia and the Brandywine battlefield. I am going to go to London later this summer with Julie Clausen and a group of her readers. And then Laura, Franz, and I are staying to do some research while we're in London because we both write 18th century stuff.
Yes, so that is exciting. Is that the first time that you've taken a research trip overseas?
No, I went with Julie in 2017 and 2019 to England. I've been with Liz Curtis Higgs in 2016 to Scotland. And I think that's all.
Okay. Well, that actually segues just right into something that I wanted to ask you about coming up next year. Now, you're talking about this year going on these trips, but next year you are actually helping lead one of these trips. So it's a 6-day 18th century tour that readers can join you on. So, can you tell us about that?
So Laura approached me a few months ago and said, putting our heads together kind of thing, where she had been asked and I had been asked by readers if we were ever going to go to these places that we wrote about. Between the two of us, we have written respective books, but in the same places and gone to research at the same time period. It's going to be places like Williamsburg and Jamestown, Yorktown, Alexandria, Valley Forge, and Philadelphia. And my books, the Sovereign Liberty series, which is A Worthy Risk and a Declaration of Hope, take place in a lot of those places. And Laura's books, like The Lace Maker, A Heart Adrift, The Indigo Heiress, and Tidewater Bride, take place in those places. So Julie Clausen and her husband are already signed up to go with a bunch of other people who are going to go with us. So it's going to be a lark.
That sounds amazing. And my family actually has history from that time period too. I have a great, many times great uncle who was friends with George Washington and Benjamin Franklin and all of those guys. He was the first governor of Pennsylvania. So that is
That's
something.
awesome.
Yeah. So that is something that, I have not explored it probably as much as I should, but it is always fascinating to learn and kind of watch for the Mifflin name to pop up some places.
Well, isn't there a fort?
I think there is.
I think there is.
And Dunder Mifflin from The Office was actually partially named after him too, because it's kind of a joke that there's so many things named Mifflin in Pennsylvania.
How fun is that?
Yes. All right. Well, taking a kind of turn from this, when I was researching on your website to get ready for this interview, I found out that you have a personal history with the National Football League. So, can you tell us about that?
I do. Isn't that crazy? I have a so-called football career. It started in high school, and you can probably see where this is going, but my U.S. history teacher was our head football coach. And I would definitely say he had influence that rubbed off on me. I liked the game so much, I ended up working in the football office then of my junior college, which led to a position in the football office at a major college. And from there, I worked for 2 NFL teams, the former San Diego Chargers and the then Washington Redskins. Some of the guys that I have worked with, players and coaches, they are just amazing away from the field as well as husbands and fathers. And they have solid, often Christ-centered purpose. And some of them even have characters named after them in both of my series.
Oh, well, that's very interesting. Yeah, that is not something that you find very often in the author community, someone with such a tie to a major sports league.
It's definitely an adventure.
Now, is there a scripture that has been meaningful to you recently?
Well, actually, it's not recent. It's a long time coming, but I think it lingers because, as you know, doing historical research, transportation was horses, not a lot of automotive anything in the 1700s. So there's one in Psalm 20, verse 7 that says, "Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God." And trusting in things will not get me far. But the name of the Lord is our strength and our might, and his ways are higher than ours. He's faithful and he's good, even when I don't understand what's going on. And I find that my characters sometimes reflect those same kind of struggles in their made up lives. But they also know Jesus is coming back on a white horse, like in Revelation 19.
Yes. Now, where can readers connect with you?
So my website just got a lovely little refresh, and Declaration of Hope has been added as the new coming release on June 23rd. And the website is telizabethrenich.com, TELIZABETHRENICH.com. And then my Facebook author page is T Elizabeth Renich /author. And if anybody's really interested, Laura Friends and I have a private Facebook page that's called The Gorgeous Georgians. And I think there's more than 600 people now who are there and interact with us about 18th century things.
Yes, I'm in that group.
I know, it's fun.
Yes, there's lots of good stuff that's posted over there, historical information and book recommendations and all kinds of things.
Oh, I think the dresses that Laura posts on Friday are so pretty.
Yes. So there's definitely lots of places to connect with you online if anyone is interested.
Yes.
Listeners, please do go to telizabethrenich.com to find out more about Tammy, her stories, and that reader tour with Laura France coming up next fall. Now is the perfect time to register so you can spend some time with those fabulous ladies and glean from all the research they have done over the years. As I mentioned earlier, with the 250th anniversary of America's founding, this is a great time to read books which are set around the Revolutionary War. Let me go ahead and read you the full blurb of Tammy's book, A Worthy Risk, which is currently a finalist for the Holt Medallion. One for the land and one for the war, one for the church, and pray for no more. Serenity Ravensworth is the lone sister among four brothers who seem to match descriptive lines of an ancient, anonymous poem. The youngest has no inheritance according to English law. The next brother in line studies to be ordained at Oxford. The soldier has been in British North America fighting the French and their native allies. And the eldest usurps control of Fernsby Hall. Reckless gambling endangers all the Ravensworth brothers and puts Serenity squarely in harm's way. Without the aid of Serenity's soldier brother, former grenadier Marcus St. James would not have made it back to England. Wounded and left for dead in the wake of the massacre at a fort that I do not know how to pronounce, Lieutenant St. James is found alive 8 weeks after and 500 miles distant from his last known whereabouts. His disturbing lack of memories gnaws at his sound mind, and his sense of loss is compounded by unanswered questions. An introduction to Miss Ravensworth inspires St. James to collect the shattered pieces of the life left to him. Predicated by stronger feelings than he is able to articulate, his timely rescue of her deepens the growing attachment between them. Compelled to follow the pull of unexpected opportunities in a new land, Miss Ravensworth braves the Atlantic crossing while St. James, at Benjamin Franklin's behest, returns to the Pennsylvania colony as a member of Charles Mason and Jeremiah Dixon's survey team. Far from the familiarity of England, will these two find purpose together or challenge apart as Parliament dictates stricter regulations and imposes taxation on British citizens dwelling in the North American colonies? The 7 Years' War is over, but King George III's royal proclamation is the first domino to fall on the way to igniting a revolution. Now, this is her first book in the Sovereign Liberty series, and the second book comes out in a few weeks, with a third to follow next year, as we talked about earlier. We've mentioned Laura France a few times, and Laura is a friend to the Well-Read Llama, as well as such an encouragement to authors everywhere. I interviewed her last year, and you can find a replay of that on my YouTube channel at author Erin Mifflin. Laura wrote a book in honor of this year's big anniversary, and it released in January. It's called The Belle of Chatham and features George Washington as a prominent side character. And here's the blurb for that one. In 1777, caught in the crossroads of the American Revolution, sisters Mabel and Coralie Bohannon's quaint New Jersey village becomes a battleground as they house American officers in their home. Rebellion ripples through their family as members take opposing sides, patriots and loyalists, causing a deep chasm that fractures their once unbreakable bond. As May's friendship grows with American General Reese Harlow, Coralie continues her liaison with her childhood sweetheart, a British officer stationed in New York. Torn between her growing love for the general and suspicion that her sister is a British spy, May leaves the only home she's ever known for the New York frontier. When betrayal strikes in the heart of the wilderness, she's forced to make a perilous journey that tests her very survival and those she loves, all in the name of liberty. Proclaimed wordsmith extraordinaire by Library Journal, Laura France delivers a stirring tale of divided loyalties, sisterhood, and love. I would definitely agree with Library Journal that Laura is a wordsmith extraordinaire. Her books really, really bring you into the setting and you just feel like you're there. She just has a way of writing that just draws you right in. Now, Laura's books are standalones, but she does have another book set in colonial Williamsburg that I wanted to mention. And Tammy mentioned some other titles in her interview earlier, but I specifically wanted to talk about The Lace Maker here. And here's what you can find in that book. Lady Elizabeth Lawson, who is also known as Liberty, has nearly everything a lady of her position could want. Daughter of the British Lieutenant Governor of the Virginia colony and a darling of fine society in a rugged land, she is anticipating an advantageous marriage. That her betrothed is a rake and love is lacking is of little consequence, or so she tells herself. Though her life seems in order, colonial Williamsburg is a powder keg on the verge of exploding, and her fiancé's cousin, noble Renich, carries the flame of revolution in his heart. Those with connections to the British nobility are suspected as spies, and Liberty soon finds herself left with a terrible choice. Will she stay true to her English roots, or side with Noble and the radical revolutionaries? And I have to say, this particular book taught me a love for the Welsh language. And I'll just leave it at that. But if you like swooning over Welsh endearments, this is definitely the book for you. Another author of Revolutionary War books that I've interviewed here on the show is Megan Soja. Her series, Harbor of Spies, has 3 books, and you can get to know Megan by listening to my interview with her on my YouTube channel. Here's the blurb of that first book, Spark of the Revolution. A spark ignites a flame that could burn down everything they hold dear. Contrary to her name, Patience Abbott has long felt unsettled and anxious to leave behind her painful memories in England and start fresh in America. But her new life isn't quite what she expected, and as tension grows in her new home of Boston, so does the distance between Patience and her estranged father. So when Josiah Wagner walks into her life, it finally feels like she's not alone, if only his patriotic leanings didn't put him at odds with her father's loyalties. Josiah Wagner has spent his life yearning for a true home and family, something he works toward each day, forging tools as a blacksmith, and each night forging plans with the Sons of Liberty. But when the destruction of tea in Boston Harbor lights the spark of the revolution, Josiah finds himself drawn into its tumultuous wake, pulling the woman he loves along with him. As tensions mount, will their search for belonging lead them to each other, or will the obstacles between them be too great to overcome? In a land on the brink of war, can they find the home they seek in the one who calls them his own? And one thing I love about Christian fiction is the way that authors are able to weave in their faith in the faith of their characters and make this a truly uplifting experience to read these books and to be encouraged in our own hearts as we live out the adventures of our own lives. Many of you know historical author Rosanna M. White, though you may not know that once upon a time she also wrote a 3-book series set around the events of the Revolution. It focuses on the spy network known as the Culper Ring, and in fact that's the name of the series. The Culper Ring was used by George Washington to gather information and thwart the plans of the British. Here's what you can find in the first book of Rosanna's series called Ring of Secrets. This exciting romantic spy novel from Rosanna M. White combines fascinating cloak and dagger secrets with a tale of love and intrigue during the Revolutionary War. Winter Reeves is an aristocratic patriot forced to hide her heart amid the loyalists in the city of New York. She has learned to keep her ears open so she can pass information on British movements to Robbie Townsend, her childhood friend, and his spy ring. If she's caught, if she's hung for espionage, well, she won't be. Robbie has taught her the tools of the trade, the wonders of invisible ink, drop locations, and most importantly, a good cover. Bennett Lane returns to New York from his Yale professorship with one goal: to find General Washington's spy hidden among the ranks of the elite. Searching for a wife was supposed to be nothing more than a convenient cover story for his mission, but when he meets Winter with her too intelligent eyes and her too blank face, he finds a mystery that can't be ignored. Both believers and both committed to separate causes. Will their faith in God lead them to a shared destiny or lives lived apart? This time period is rife with being able to play with the separate causes themes and those who are firmly entrenched one way and firmly entrenched another way, and can there be a way for them to come together? I have one last recommendation for you. It's another book about a spy ring, though it's been a long time since I read this book, so I don't remember if it's specifically about the Culper ring or not. I do remember that I loved this book, and a look at my Goodreads account reminds me that I left it a 5-star review. This book is called The Messenger by Siri Mitchell, and here's what it's about. Hannah Sunderland felt content in her embrace of the Quaker faith until her twin brother ran off and joined the army and ended up captured and in jail. Suddenly, Hannah's world turns on end. She longs to bring her brother some measure of comfort in the squalid, frigid prison where he remains. But the Quakers believe they are not to take sides, not to take up arms. Can she sit by and do nothing while he suffers? Jeremiah Jones has an enormous task before him. Responsibility for a spy ring is now his, and he desperately needs access to the men in prison whom they are seeking to free. A possible solution is to garner a pass for Hannah. But while she is fine to the eye, she holds only disdain for him, and agreeing would mean disobeying those she loves and abandoning a bedrock of her faith. With skill and sensitivity, Mitchell tells a story of two unlikely heroes seeking God's voice, finding the courage to act, and discovering the powerful embrace of love. And I do remember the Quaker aspect being quite interesting as I read that book. And like I said, I left it a 5-star review. And it's fun to revisit that when I remember that I loved it. I remember that I'm keeping it on my keeper shelf, but I might not remember all the finer details because of all the books that I've read in the years between then and now. So I hope that if you love history, and especially if you're interested in the events surrounding the founding of the United States of America, you'll check out some of these books, and especially A Worthy Risk by T. Elizabeth Renich. Don't forget to follow me on social media or visit my website, authorerinmifflin.com, to sign up for my monthly newsletter. Until next time, happy reading!
Join us next week for another episode of The Well-Read Llama with your host, author Erin Mifflin. If you'd like to find out more about author Erin Mifflin, visit her Facebook and Instagram accounts.